Jono, congratulations on your amazing swim of Foveaux Strait and, of course, the record that's come with it. What is the underlying sensation or feeling within you about the swim?
I mean, right now, I'm trying to hold on to the memory of it as closely as possible, because the longer time passes between when it was, kind of the more you forget the sensation of it and how the actual experience was. In terms of how I feel, like I don't feel like I'm that much different of a person other than completing this swim. I think it was the end of a long journey that shaped me, and so that swim in itself was an amazing adventure, but I don't think it would be fair to say that it was one day that changed my life. It was a long journey over what has now been years that has shaped and evolved me. Like, was there a big sense of like happiness or relief on finishing the swim? I had already gone through the visualizations in my mind of what it was going to feel like during the swim, before the swim, after the swim when I finished. That actually doing it was, in a way, was kind of a formality, and that I had already been through those emotions before I actually got to the start line. So, obviously it was good to finish the swim, and I had a strong sense that I was doing so at a good pace. At the record pace, unofficially at the moment, by the way, but it wasn't like I had this amazing kind of overwhelming feeling that you might expect. It was more just that I had got it done as expected, as planned, and as much as anything, I was happy with that. And yeah, left out of the harbour at 20 to 6, and it was like black. There was a little bit of swell that was rolling through at that stage, and so some of the crew got a little bit queasy, myself included. But when daybreak came at just after 7 o'clock, we could see that it was an amazing day, and when we got to Saddle Point, which is off Stewart Island, at about 8 o'clock, we had a bit of time to grease up and test the tide even as well. So the boat just went into neutral, and we tested kind of which way it was flowing, and then once everything was ready, we were off. Yeah, so a week before the swim, on Sunday the 14th of February, I completed the swim on the 22nd, Monday the 22nd. There was a lockdown that was announced at 7 p.m. on the Sunday, effective midnight that same night. I was, at the time, on that night, I was sitting on the couch just kind of preparing for the work week ahead, and Sarah was with me, my fiancée, and she got a text from a friend at the school where she teaches, and it basically read, I guess we're working from home as of tomorrow, and we were kind of like, what's going on, because we hadn't actually seen the media announcement. We weren't following the news actively, and it was only after the press briefing that we actually became aware that we were going into lockdown, and the tide window was due to start on that coming Thursday. So, I kind of sat back on the couch, and I was like, what do I do now? Do I wait? I guess it is what it is. And then a couple of people texted me, and they said, so are you going to get out of Auckland? And I was like, oh, maybe, that's potentially something I can do. But I hadn't really thought seriously of it. I had kind of anxiety was building up. I talked to my dad, gave my dad a call, and normally he's a pretty good sounding board for these kind of things, and just talked through it. And he said, well, either way, if you leave, it's not like you'll have any loss. You can give it a crack. I talked to my manager at work, and he said, yep, no, it's fine. You can work remotely. and then we just made a decision, that I was going to leave. And Caitlin messaged me around that time, and she said we're gapping Auckland, and by 9 o'clock that night, I'd packed up all of my equipment, all of my gear, and I was on the road to Sarah's grandma's place in Cambridge, and then I stayed there for the next few days. I was still kind of working through what day we were actually going to do the swim. Thursday was looking like I had initially been targeting that, but the wind was coming up, so it was looking a bit iffy. Caitlin went with Wednesday, which was a really good day in terms of the wind, but slightly outside of the tide. Just all up, it was a very anxiety-ridden few days, refreshing the weather forecast every 10 to 20 minutes, which obviously didn't do any help because it doesn't actually change that often. A lot of organisation with myself and the skipper at the time, who later changed, and the support crew as well. So last time I talked to you, Seti, I was in touch with a father-son duo who lived in either Bluff or Invercargill. Actually, one of them lived in Invercargill and one of them on Stewart Island. And on the Saturday before my swim, so Saturday at 3 p.m, I got a text that said, we can't do it. We've run into troubles with the boat. Shortly after that, had to kind of run around trying to sort out a new pilot, and this was a day and a half before the swim. So yeah, it was a very interesting lead up. A lot happened, but the support crew were amazing, came together, and the boat pilot that we did have was amazingly good as well, and was super supportive, and yeah, it all came together, even though it was a very anxiety-ridden and stressful week in the lead up. So in the research that I had done, when I say many, there weren't too many, I think there were 3, but the 3 previous swims that I had looked at in terms of their chart, so being Chloe Harris, Simon Olliver and Hannah Morgan, all went in on the flood tide, so took in like a northeast bearing, as you say, and then cut back in to a more northerly, kind of west, westish bearing, northwest, I guess, bearing on the ebb tide, and then if needed, back cutting back in on the next flood as well. So we determined that the high tide would be around 11 o'clock, and then worked backwards from there to determine the best starting point. So that meant that we had about 2.5 hours with the tide pulling in. We had a little bit of tide advantage at the start, but not a huge amount, and that was offset by the tide that we were swimming into at the end as well, when we had to cut back into land against the ebb tide. So yeah, we worked it so that we got a little bit of an advantage pulling off Stewart Island, and then from there the tide on the ebb tide just flows east to west, and if you can kind of envisage it, we were swimming. We'd basically kind of be like, if I was without the tide, it would just be in a straight line, but the tide's kind of pushing you across. Then I guess it was pretty tide neutral, like we weren't getting a lot of advantage or disadvantage either way. And then toward the end, a little bit of work to push against the tide. So, I think initially we were looking at about 7.5 hours. It turned out 7:52, just work coming in against the tide. So in terms of the temperature, I guess just to talk to that for a short while, so I had prepared for it being 12 degrees and potentially warming as we got closer to the South Island. It turned out that it was warmer than that, which is good. So it was 14 degrees off Stewart Island, going to 15 degrees in the middle of the strait for most of the swim, and then 16 degrees right toward the end as we approach the South Island. So temperature wasn't really a concern. It was a little bit fresh at the start, but I'd prepared my body and trained for those conditions. In terms of the temperatures, probably the hardest thing to deal with was in the middle of the strait. There were some currents just carrying some warmer water, so it would go, and potentially colder water as well. It would go cold, and then it would go kind of warm or neutral, and then it would go cold, and so that was actually quite difficult to deal with, just trying to maintain the same regulation in my body during that time. Otherwise, the swim mostly went according to plan. Obviously, the conditions were good, so I could just focus on my stroke, focus on my pace, and maintaining consistency. And what was kind of going through my head was just making sure that I was just, keeping at that pace that I wasn't completely comfortable with, but that I wasn't building lactic acid through as well. So, around at the edge of my aerobic capacity, that was a quick pace, but it wasn't so quick that I was going to burn out at the end. I think it's better to be over-prepared. If anything, I was probably over-prepared. You definitely don't want to be undercooked going into something like that. I had trained so that if the conditions were bad, I was going to be able to deal with that. And I had trained that I could hold my pace for longer than 30k if I needed to as well. So I'd say I was over-prepared, but I think that's where you want to be. Yeah, so on the day, I had Simon Olliver there, who was acting as the official and independent observer. There's no association for the swim at present, and Simon's working through getting that ratified in the background. So during the swim, he was taking latitude, longitude positioning. We obviously had GPS running. We had speed trackers and taking notes on. Normally it's the frequency of feed, so every 30 minutes, just taking some notes around how the swim was behaving, and making sure that I'm following according to marathon swimming rules. So, no touching of the boat, no assistance in any way, wearing the right garments and equipment and all the rest of it. So, we expect that there won't be any problems in terms of the ratification. And then at the end of it, I should have the speed record of 7 hours, 52 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I think the temperature I was totally okay with. So that was a challenge that I had expected, but that didn't prove to be. I think the biggest thing was actually just holding that mental edge to make sure that I did maintain that pace and not slacken off during the swim. And that was something that I was prepared for, but that was probably the hardest part of the swim, was just like mentally staying very, very focused. I didn't set out to achieve it at all. I had only ever planned on doing Cook initially back in 2019, and then that evolved into doing Taupo as well. And then I think I looked at Foveaux more as something that scared me, that I had to do because it was something that I didn't want to do, rather than it being part of the Triple Crown. It was just, it's just kind of fortunate that that's the way that it's arranged, that it is part of the Triple Crown. So I'm definitely happy to be part of that club of people. But yeah, I think I'd be doing myself too many favours to say that there was any kind of intention behind that. It was just something that fell together, and I've kind of just, with swimming generally, with these big swims, I've kind of just tended to follow where the current takes me in a way, where what feels right, and that's what I'll just keep on doing as well. Yeah, so there was quite a bit of marine life on the day. It's a channel which is which is very active with its fish life and other things. So, you know, at the start when I was kicking off the swim, there were fish kind of swimming around me, which was very cool. The water visibility was amazing. Like, it hadn't rained in a long time, and the water was very, very clear. I've never seen water that clear before, and I've been in water my whole life. We did see, or the crew rather, saw something hanging around the surface about halfway through the swim. There was, so I was just swimming, and Belinda and Camille were in the support boat, as well as a couple of guys from the Surf Life Club. I can't remember exactly which ones, and I saw them standing up in the boat and pointing, and I was like, what are they pointing at? Like, is there a boat or something over there, or like an albatross? Because we had some albatross activity, and I was like, oh, whatever it is, I'm not too bothered, and we're just going to keep on going. And they later told me when we got out that they had seen, you know, a shark, and they saw it kind of just hanging around, and then when we got a little bit closer, it went away. I think from the estimates that I heard, it was about 15 meters away, so it wasn't like doing anything to be a nuisance. I also, in the water below me, I saw a group of sharks just circling, you know, well below me, and it was like quite a beautiful thing to see, actually, because they were just, you know, very slowly, just kind of like in a spiral formation, just going around in the water. And you know, I did kind of get a little bit of fear at the time, and shortly after that, coming in for a feed, I swam into the shark shield device as well, just to add a little bit more flavour to that, which gave me a good shock to the torso. But no, you know, it was like an experience that probably lasted all of 5 to 10 seconds. Swam over them, and it was gone. And I'm really trying to hold on to that, the memory of that, because it was so cool, seeing it. Outside of that, there wasn't a lot of other marine activity. The guys on the boat saw a bunch of penguins. I didn't see those, and there were hundreds of mutton bird at the end as well that we swam through. So they were circling around, and you know, otherwise they were sitting on the water, and as we got closer, they'd be flying off, and that was very cool to swim through. If I was to make it like the absolute perfect swim, it would have been just that ending, you know, that we had to cut back toward the land. If we had strayed a little bit further on a north bearing, then it would have been a quicker time. But as it is, you know, I gave it a really good bash on the day. There is a part of me which says, you know, if I had gone faster, there would be less chance of that record being broken. But you know, it's easier to say now when I'm not in the water and not in pain. Yeah, I have it. Look, I've had some early thoughts around what I do want to do next. I don't want to, you know, go out and put a whole lot of plans into place around that. It's nice to just have some thoughts without putting any effort behind it at this stage. But you know, I think it's good to be intentional about actually taking a break, actually resting, and giving your mind that chance to recover, as well as your body, obviously. Probably the only thing that I would say coming out of this is, you know, I'd love for people in the ocean swimming community to reach out. Like, if you're thinking about anything like this, I love to chat to people around their adventures, their ambitions. Hopefully doing something like this has opened up, you know, the thought of it for other people as well, and I'm pretty sure we'll see some more Foveaux Strait swims in future. So yeah, I'd just say, like, you know, I wanna give back to the community as much as possible, so any opportunity to do that would be great, and I just love connecting with swimmers.